Welcome back. The time is 28 minutes past 9 Central African time, and we're now going to be shifting gears and heading over to Syria. We'll be taking a closer look at the future of Syria, which is currently grappling with an aftermath of 14 years of a devastating civil war, crippling sanctions, and also a shattered infrastructure. With Bashar al-Assad ousted and a new leadership currently in place, Syria's immediate priority should be, well, economic recovery, but the road to stability remains fraught with a lot of challenges. I think we've all seen images coming out of Syria and the recent, conflicts that are still continuing in that part of the world. I don't know, pursuit of some kind of stability, and doing that with foreign sanctions still looming, the country's economy being in tatters, inflation soaring, and just the country not being as stable as you'd want it to be, particularly after this new regime change. In a bit, we'll be speaking to Clotilde, Bigot, the French journalist who's currently in Damascus in Syria, to gain an on-the-ground perspective on the situation in Syria. She will be helping us understand the extent of Syria's devastation, the challenges facing the new government, and what hope there is for recovery as Syria works towards stability and rebuilding. Clotilde, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media, and really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I think first and foremost, if you can just give us, what sense you're gathering currently on the ground in Syria right now. You are in Damascus. I'm sure you've been to other areas also. After, I think, years and years and years of a devastating civil war, what's the mood like currently in the country?
It's the first time on the 10th of December. So tried to be Syrian and to have actually toppled that regime without the help of foreign interventions. But now the reality is kind of catching up on the Syrians. The economic situation is absolutely catastrophic. There's more than 90% of Syrians that are below the poverty line, and people are expecting change, and they're expecting change quickly. And so there's a lot of tensions more. So there's obviously the economic tensions where Syrians are just simply poor and they're trying to get by day. And then there's also the sectarian tensions, as we saw a month ago. There was massacres on the coast against Alawites by HTS affiliated men who, and then basically there's more of a sense of fear within the minorities, and especially within the Alawite minorities, because Bashar al-Assad came from this minority, and a lot of Alawites supported the regime, but not all of them. And there's the sense of fear amongst minorities that maybe the regime and the image that a lot of Syrians have on these people will turn against them, and that they are not in security and that they would have to leave the country.
Mm, mm, mm. Can you maybe give us insight on, the new Syrian leadership, obviously led by the current president Ahmed al-Shara? What are you sensing from them? What are some of the major political shifts that are you seeing? And from your perspective, how is this new leadership approaching some of the challenges of rebuilding the economy, as you've mentioned? Trying to figure out if there can be any kind of cohesion in the country, and what would you say are some of the immediate steps that they're prioritizing also?
Well, so this is very interesting because there's different, basically, steps that need to be taken, and they all need to be taken at the same time. So there's the economic situation, and the most important for the Syrian leadership is to remove the sanctions. So there are, for example, the European Union said that they would remove the sanctions for about a year, but that's not enough. Not enough for investors who want a long-term investment. Obviously, you can't ask investors to invest on only 1 year and then maybe we'll see what happens. And then there's the health sector. There's basically every single sector of the Syrian society that needs to be rebuilt. So you have the health sector with hospitals that were destroyed, lots of hospitals that were destroyed, notably in Homs area during the civil war. And then so you have the economic sector, the health sector, the education sector, which is also, you have a lot of basically Syrian children who were left out of school and who are displaced. And you obviously have these people who are displaced. We're talking about millions of people who had to leave their homes, who were either transported to Idlib in these famous green buses, and now that want to go back home, but go back home to what and to where? Because most parts of the countries are simply destroyed. For example, Damascus is relatively stable. There's no destruction inside the capital, but as soon as you go to the suburbs, notably East Ghouta, this was a neighborhood that was extremely populated. We're talking about the suburbs of the capital, so residential areas that are completely destroyed. It is impossible to go back there. There's no water, there's no electricity. So there are some people who are trying to fix their homes and trying to show that they're willing to go back home and willing to stay there. But the challenges are immense. When I'm talking, so I'm currently in Damascus, but I also spent some time in Aleppo and Idlib. And the road from Damascus to Aleppo, it's around 4.5 hour ride, and everything is destroyed. There is
Mm,
literally no building that does not have any impact of this war. So we're talking about millions of people who need housing. And this shows in Damascus with the prices of the rent that have gone up. And so Syrians who wish to come back home to Syria, who were exiled, cannot find affordable housing. So there's a lot of issues that need to be tackled by the new government. And the new government is trying its best, I believe, to actually tackle these issues. But then we have also the security perspective with, as we saw, the massacres that took place last month, and the president, well, the interim president,
yes, interim.
for the shout out, interim, keep it simple. He appointed a new government,
Hmm.
and what was something that Syrians noticed is that he appointed his brother. So in the precedent interim government, his brother was Minister of Health, and now he is number two or number three of the Syrian government. And so Syrians are thinking, oh no, here we go again.
Mm,
We have the same system that's put in place where the president appoints his close, whether it's friends, family, etc. And this is something that Syrians are really like expecting to change. And so Syrians are ready for fighting again and for a new revolution. And this is the most important thing that the new government will have to make sure that basically everything is transparent and that it's real democracy.
mm, mm. The new leadership has talked about, restructuring ministries, and I think you mentioned that, with the appointment of, this new cabinet, the announcing of this new cabinet. How have these reforms? I think you touched on it briefly with, obviously, the appointment of the minister by the president, who's his brother. How have some of these new reforms and just the government in generally being received by the people, and also the broader international community? We've heard of countries who have previously held sanctions against Syria, saying they would be willing to retract some of those sanctions, if they can promise stability in the country. The just the general receiving of this new Syrian government, both internally and also externally by other countries. What can we make of it?
Well, internally, the new government has been pretty well received because we're talking of a pretty inclusive government. So there's one woman that's minister, which is obviously not great, but it's already a step forward. And we're talking about government that is based on Sharia law. And so this is also something that is a bit hard to understand for Assyrians because they've been living in a secular-ish, at least facade regime for 55 years, and they're afraid of this shift towards Islam as a religion of state because it wouldn't respect all the minorities. So we have this issue, but there's also and mostly the minorities that are represented in this new government. There's a Kurdish person, there's a Druze minister, and so these are well received by the Syrian people. And outside of the country, also, I believe that this government was also made to ease the sanctions, and therefore it needs to be in alignment with the West in a way, it needs to kind of find a middle ground between the West's view of Syria, of the new Syria, and what they're actually capable of accepting on their side, on the Hayat al-Hisham side. And so there's more or less happy, like the Syrians are quite happy with this new government, and foreign, basically Western powers uh, said that this government was a good step forward towards a new Syria and a democratic Syria with the possibility at the end of the day of easing sanctions on the country. So more or less, everybody was more or less happy with the new government, but obviously now they need to get to work and they need to actually change things in order for Syria to be able to rise again.
All right. I think we're going to leave on that note. Clotilde, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and I hope to chat again in the not so distant future.
Goodbye.
There you go. That was Clotilde Bigot coming to us live from Damascus out in Syria, and just giving us the latest on the ground as Syria tries to rebuild itself, try to reconfigure itself after, I think, centuries of Assad rule and continued infighting and civil war in the country. So it's going to be interesting how this new government kind of handles all of the issues that the country is going to be grappling with, trying to gain some kind of diplomatic relationships with a lot of countries across the world, the opening of embassies, and also the issue with the minorities and how they're treated in Syria. It's going to be an interesting 2025 for Syria in particular. And you now have Israel in the mix, and we know the situation there. So I think all eyes will be on this new government. It will be on their new president, Ahmed al-Shara, and his rule and what that is going to look like for the people of Syria. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views will continue.